What's up, everybody? My name is Jonathan Casey. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the LG V60 camera, and I'm going to go over 10 features that you should try as soon as you get your phone. The very first one is how to customize the camera modes. That way you can access the ones that you use most often on the fly. Let's go ahead and open up the camera. And the first thing you're gonna do is swipe over until you get to the More section. And then in the top right corner, you have like a little pencil icon. Just tap on that. And now you can move around modes. So let's say I didn't want the sticker mode down here. I could just hold it and then drag it up. And then say I wanted the manual video mode right next to the regular video mode. I can just hold down on manual video and then bring it down. And I can do the same thing for the photo mode. So let's see, let's go ahead and swipe over till I get to the photo mode right there. And then we're gonna drag down the manual camera. So if I hit the little check mark, that means I'm finished. And if I go over to the regular photo mode, you can see I have manual camera, I have portrait mode, manual video, and video. It's really nice that you're able to customize this experience and make it personalized to your liking. Now, while we're over here, you can also download different camera modes, which is number 2. Going back over to the More tab, right next to the pencil icon, there's a downward pointing arrow. Just tap on that. It's gonna bring you to the LG Smart World store. And you can see right now at the time of this video, there's 2 different modes that you can download, Cine Shot and 360 Panorama. Obviously 360 Panorama is self-explanatory. However, Cine Shot is really cool because it takes a still image and then it animates a portion of that image. It's really cool that you can download both of these modes for free, but a lot of people may not know that you can do so. Number 3 is the fact that the LG V60 can capture a 16 megapixel still or a 64 megapixel still. And it's doing this through a binning process. So at the top of the camera app, under the main photo tab, you have 4x3. If you tap on 4x3, you have an option for just regular 4x3 and then 4x3 64 megapixels. So if I select 64 megapixels, now it's going to give me a 64 megapixel image, which is the full size of the sensor. With the 16 megapixel 4x3 option, it's actually still taking that 64 megapixel image, but then compressing it to 16 megapixels through binning, which is ultimately going to give you a better image in lower lit environments. My recommendation is to use the regular 16 megapixels 99.9% of the time, and then only use the 64 megapixels whenever you need that extra resolution, whether it's for a landscape shot or if you're planning on doing some cropping in post. Number 4 is saving your images in the HEIF file type or high efficiency image format. This is gonna save some space on your internal storage, and it's also gonna give you a better compression. The downside to this is all computers and all other smartphones may not support this file type. However, most modern computers and modern smartphones should. The first thing we're gonna do is open up the camera app, go inside the settings, and then make sure the option for Save as HEIF is turned on. Now, whenever you take a picture, it's gonna save it in this file format versus JPEG, and ultimately it's going to save some space on your internal storage. This includes the 64 megapixel stills, which do take up a lot more storage than a 16 megapixel. Number 5 comes down to portrait mode on the V60. And while portrait mode isn't new, some of the modes within portrait mode are, including the 3D portrait mode effect, and it's really cool. It's just really hard to convey on camera, but I'm gonna try my best. Once you're inside the camera app, just swipe over to portrait mode. And then these are the different options. You have blur, you have 3D photo effect, which is the one that I was talking about when I said the 3D portrait mode option. Then you have color focus, you have panning, you have zoom, natural light, softbox, contour light, stage light mono, and then backdrop. But we're gonna focus on 3D photo effect. Have you ever been on Facebook and then you're going through your timeline and then randomly someone's photo just has this weird like 3D effect and it's just a basic portrait mode shot? That's exactly what this setting is going to replicate. If I take my V60 here and flip it around, because it only works on the back cameras, not on the front, and then take a selfie. So let's see here, like, I think we got it. And pull it up here. It didn't do that good of a job on cutting me out, but hopefully you can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to show you. It is really, really trippy in person. And when I had hands-on time with it, it worked a lot better. It might be because how busy the background is, but I don't know, I think it's really cool. I think it's definitely a unique twist on portrait mode when it comes to smartphones. So if you tap on 3D effect, you can go to like a normal portrait mode shot. And if you want to go back to that 3D photo effect, just tap on 3D photo effect again, and now you're back to that 3D effect. And if you want to switch it up to a different 3D or different portrait mode filter, just tap on the little person with the arrow circle thing right here, and it's going to pull up the editor. And then from here, you can select a different kind of portrait mode effect. Number 6 is all about manual mode. So if we dive into the camera app here and then go under manual camera, this is gonna be strictly for photo. And what's great about the manual mode is you're able to switch lenses, so you can do the 2x digital zoom, you can also do the wide angle, and you can do the standard camera. Game changing. A lot of other manual modes on different phones do not allow you to switch lenses, whereas this one you can. The other thing is you can only capture raw images in manual mode. And that might put a lot of people off because they just want the convenience of pulling out your phone in auto and taking a picture. However, you could still do that. Just don't mess with any of these settings down here. Down here, you have auto white balance, auto focus, you have your exposure, you have your auto ISO, and then you have your shutter speed. Everything right now is in auto. And if you want to tweak it yourself for like a manual type experience, just tap on the setting that you want to change. And when you want to go back to auto, just tap on auto. One thing to keep in mind is that raw image capture is not enabled by default. You do have to turn it on within the settings. To do that, tap on the cogwheel and then look for the option save as raw, make sure it's turned on, and that's it. For those of you that don't know, the biggest advantage to RAW is all of the flexibility you have when you're editing the image. You could tweak the white balance, you could tweak the exposure, you could tweak the shadows, the highlights, the brilliance, all of that without truly degrading the image like with a JPEG or HEIF. The downside to RAW is the file sizes. The file size for RAW is way bigger than JPEG and way bigger than HEIF. So I suggest only enabling RAW if you're using a micro SD card like one from Lexar, which I'll link the ones that I personally use in the description of this video. The biggest downside to Pro Mode is the fact that you don't have the ability to take a 64 megapixel still. Even if you turn off RAW, the option is still grayed out. Most people are gonna be fine with this. I mean, 64 megapixels is a bit overkill for a smartphone. However, if you're planning on doing a lot of landscape shots, you might just wanna stay in auto. And also, the scene optimizer only works in auto, so just keep that in mind as well. That being said, if we back up, you can see you have an option for Graphy photos. Now, by default, it's turned off. Make sure to turn that on. And this is gonna be like your scene optimizer, but for Pro Mode. It's gonna educate you how you can get a better shot and show you how you can adjust the settings to get that shot. Honestly, I love Graphy. I think everybody that owns an LG phone with Graphy on it should be using it. Not only will it make you a better photographer, but it's gonna optimize your scene by giving you the tools and the education you need to do it yourself versus using AI. And then you can apply everything that you learned through Graphy to a regular camera if you decide to upgrade and get yourself like a DSLR or mirrorless later on in the future. Number 7 is the built-in night view mode. So if we go under more and then tap on night view, this is pretty much gonna be exactly the same as other phones that have a dedicated night mode where it takes multiple exposures and then takes all of those shots and compresses them into one shot, killing noise and giving you better dynamic range. There is a slider on the bottom that you can use to control your exposure. So if I swipe it all the way to the left, it darkens the image, and then swiping it over to the right will brighten the image. And I can also use night view with the standard 1x, the 2x, as well as the wide angle. A lot of other smartphones out there do not allow you to use night mode with various lenses and various cameras. This one does. And then if we dive into the settings, we have the option to change the megapixel count of the still images, but we can only go up to 13 megapixels, not 16. So just keep that in mind. If we back out, we can also create a grid for composition purposes. We can also use voice commands to take a picture, add a signature, tag locations, etc. But yeah, that's pretty much night view. And I am happy to see that it's on here when it comes to the V60, and I cannot wait to, try it out a little bit more. One thing I forgot to mention when it comes to night view is the fact that it does not work on the front-facing camera. This is a bit of a bummer. I would have loved to have seen this option for the front-facing camera, just like Samsung has a night mode for their front-facing camera. Hopefully LG can push this out in an update. Now with that out of the way, number 8 is manual video mode, which I am really, really excited for. LG has always done a fantastic job at delivering a very capable manual video mode. And I didn't think that they could really get any better because they are doing it really good. I mean, better than some other smartphone manufacturers for sure. However, with the V60, they just one-up themselves. They got a little cray. So at the bottom here, you have all of your manual controls, including your white balance, your focus, your EV or exposure compensation. Then you have your ISO, your shutter speed. None of that is new. This is where things get interesting though. So at the top, you can see you have full HD. If you tap on that, you can change the resolution all the way up to 8K. 8K manual mode. Now with 8K selected, we have control over our white balance, we have control over our focus, we have control over our ISO and the shutter speed. But let's take it a step further. Let's dive into the settings. Wow, we can actually adjust the frame rate. Now you're gonna see the option for 1 frame per second and 2 frames per second. What does that mean and why is it useful? Time lapse. Using these 2 options, you can shoot an 8K time lapse. If you didn't know, 8K is equivalent to 33 megapixels. That means you're able to capture a 33 megapixel time lapse. That's awesome. So if we dive back into the main setting page here, and then you have the option for bitrate. If we tap on that, right now it's medium. And if we go back to the camera, you can see the bitrate is 48 megabits per second. Obviously 48 megabits per second isn't that high, especially for 8K. So let's go back into the settings, tap on bitrate, select high, then go back. Wow, it bumped it up to 60 megabits per second. This is definitely better than the previous bitrate, but just keep in mind with this larger bitrate, it's going to equate to a larger file size. So I would only do this if you're using a micro SD card. Even though it's gonna write the 8K video file to the internal storage, you could just copy it over at the end of the day. Let's go ahead and tap on 8K and then switch to 4K, go back into the settings and see what we have available in terms of settings. So we have HDR10+, which is also available in 8K, so you can capture an 8K 33 megapixel time lapse with HDR10+ turned on. That's just awesome. That is freaking cool. But one thing to notice is that when you turn on HDR10+, save as HEVC automatically turns on. So if I turn it off, you can see HEVC turns off. If you didn't know, HEVC stands for high efficiency video codec. It's gonna give you better compression when it comes to your video, but a smaller file size. Let me just show you a quick example. So right now we're in 4K, HEVC is turned off and our bitrate is high. If we go back to the camera, you can see the bitrate is 52 megabits per second, but leaving the bitrate high and then turning on HEVC, going back, you can see the bitrate is now 40 megabits per second. So even though the bitrate did go down, the quality of the video is gonna go up because of the better compression. HEVC is automatically turned on whenever shooting in 8K, so you don't have to worry about that. Now let's go ahead and tap on 4K and we're gonna switch to full HD, or in other words, 1080p. And this is where the V60 gets really interesting, at least for me. I've never seen this on any other mobile phone. So with full HD turned on, going back into the settings and then going under frame rate, look at that. We have an option for 120 frames per second and 240 frames per second. And no, this is not gonna be the same as shooting slow motion video in 120 or 240 frames per second. This is gonna be the opposite of slow motion. It's gonna be really fast, not like sped up, but like, you know, having that reality TV show effect. And it's gonna give you a higher bit rate, ultimately giving you better video so you can slow it down on your own. So with 240 frames per second selected, we're gonna back up, then make sure that the bit rate is on high, make sure HEVC is turned on, and you can see now we have a bit rate of 72 megabits per second. That's awesome. So if we go back into the settings and then turn off HEVC, it bumps up to 96 megabits per second. It's gonna give you great looking 1080p video. Just keep in mind that you have to have enough light to use this. You have to double your frames per second for your shutter speed. So if you're shooting at 240 frames per second, your shutter speed needs to be 1/480, which you need a lot of light. Just keep that in mind. But again, this is just a great feature I've never seen on any other phone. If we go back into the settings and then change it to 120, leave everything the same, you know, bitrate on high, we'll go ahead and enable HEVC. Again, we have a bitrate of 56 megabits per second, really good. And then if we turn off HEVC, it is at 72. Again, these bit rates are great for full HD. And honestly, I'm just happy to see high-speed video recording in manual mode on a smartphone. That just excites me on so many different levels. Speaking of video, if we go under the regular video tab, at the very top, you have like a little hand signal that does this. If we tap on that, that just means that Steadicam is now turned on. This is gonna use advanced digital stabilization to smooth out your footage. So if you're chasing your kid around like a madman, or in my case, my dog, giving you a great looking video that's completely stabilized versus looking like it came out of the Blair Witch Project. Just remember though, this is digital stabilization, so it's using software. So you need to be in the proper lighting conditions. If you're in a low lit environment, it might come out looking like trash and ruin your video. So just keep that in mind. Also, it's only available in 1080p, not 4K or 8K. The last thing I want to talk about is under time-lapse. So if we select it within the photo app, and then at the top, you can see by default is shooting in 1080p or full HD. If we tap on it, we can change it to 4K. So we're able to do a time-lapse that's ready to go straight out of the camera, and it's in 4K resolution. That's pretty cool. And at the bottom here, we can adjust the speed of that time-lapse. So we can leave it on auto, which is gonna use AI to determine what you're taking a time lapse of and then speed it up how it sees fit. Or you can go in and do it custom like 1x, 5x, 10x, 15, 30, and 60. And even if you leave it in auto and use AI, you could still go in and tweak it if you feel like it didn't do a good job. So that's pretty cool. Then if we go into the settings, we can save it as an HEVC file type to reduce the file sizes when it comes to your internal storage. And if we go back, we can enable Steadicam. So you're able to do like a hyperlapse using the time-lapse mode, which is definitely awesome. One thing to keep in mind though is with Steadicam turned on, of course, you're only able to shoot in HD or full HD. Well, there it is, guys. That was some tips and tricks to get the most out of your LG V60 camera. I plan on doing a full walkthrough video going over all of the features and settings inside the camera app. So if you don't want to miss that, click the subscribe button, enable notifications, and drop me a comment down below and let me know if there's anything in specific you want me to cover when it comes to this phone. I have a few comparisons planned, my full review, as well as some other tips and tricks. So I got some stuff going on. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe for more videos just like this, and I will catch you amazing, gorgeous, beautiful people in the next video.